Alright, we're in the penultimate level, and there's some okay platforming here. Things are still just way too big, but you know, you got your standard rotating platform gimmicks and your standard vents that lift you into the air even though you should be too heavy for that gimmicks. Would you say this game is backloaded? That's not to say the game ever gets, like, good or anything, but the platforming and variety definitely gets better toward the end. As I'm sure you've noticed, like, the environmental variety has gotten a lot better. There's been more genuine platforming. None of it's been challenging, but you know, who can't get behind some air vents and rotating platforms here and there? Even if the levels are still way too giant and empty. I mean, games do generally get better the further they go on. In most cases, that is why I said generally. There are many cases where that does not happen, which I have experienced, but anyway, games do generally get better as they go on. So maybe if this game went on just a slight bit longer than it does, we would have an actual okay, mediocre platformer, instead of what we have currently. I cannot think of any sensible reason for everything to be this giant. It's not like the game controls badly enough that you would need things to be this giant, or else you just kind of fall off. The controls are fine. The platforms don't need to be this big. The rooms don't need to be this big. This room and the next one are genuinely like normal 3D platformer stuff, normal licensed 3D platformer stuff, except for the size. So I feel like they were pretty close. Like if this were, say, the first level in the game, then I feel like this would have left a much better first impression, and I would have had higher hopes for the rest. Because, you know, these pistons that push you off of platforms, they're nothing new, but they're entertaining.
Did you see that?
Draculaura's special ability is the same as Claudine's. She just makes platforms appear out of fucking nowhere. A lot of the ghouls have the same special, what are they called again, freaky flaws as each other. But I suppose that's to be expected. Anyway, I like the asynchronous way these pistons work. It's really easy to run across anyway, but still. They're a decent platforming hazard, even if there's nothing to say besides, hey, don't walk in front of them while they're pushing. And then comes the not mandatory, but still often used second part of the equation, where you walk on top of the pistons. I do wish more games let you walk on top of the pistons after you evade them, but it's really such a minor thing. What isn't so minor is that we can actually ride the pistons outward to grab a collectible, which I find is actually kind of a cute and entertaining way to hide a collectible. Something I wish we saw more of in this game. Like there's a skullette out here as soon as the piston pushes us. Yeah, see, that was actually kind of a neat collectible. If you had your brain on during this game, which isn't advisable for most of it, then you actually would have, you actually might have thought to look for that collectible. So far this level has just kind of been, hey yeah, this is how 3D platformers work. We should do more of this, because I've seen 3D platformers before and this is how they work. As though the developers just realized how 3D platformers do and decided to actually make a normal one. You know, now that I think of it, this entire level in general is much higher quality than almost everything else in the game. For example, this right here, we actually have to time our wall jumps here. It's a decent exploration of the very limited wall jump mechanics. The wall jumping isn't exactly super precise, so timing these wall jumps is about as much as you could do with it. But I can say they at least explored the wall jump mechanics that way. And of course, water means that Laguna's skullette is in the water, as it always does. There is no water without a skullette or collectible in it. Maybe the rest of the game just made me forget that this level is so much less ass than the others. It's still pretty ass, but it's much less so. Like, if this was the first level in the game, like I said, I feel like first impressions would be a bit more positive. Maybe I could see someone actually wanting to play it, but this is the second to last level, and it took a long time to get to almost acceptable, which is where we are right now. Granted, there are some bits of game design that are more than acceptable, like the exploration of wall jumping back there. That was more than just acceptable game design. That was actually good game design in this game. So there's that. I think I've said this before, but maybe like the issue was that when I got this far on my first 2 playthroughs, I was just checked the fuck out. Like I was so done that I didn't notice that the game graduated from awful and soulless to almost alright, with hints of good here and there. This moving platform section isn't so bad. You know, it's the standard jump off the platform and jump back on after the hazard is passed sort of deal that we've seen since, like what, Mario World? Probably before Super Mario World, but it's the first thing that came to mind. But yeah, you jump off the platforms when they pass under the pillars and jump back on after they leave from under the pillars. It's nothing spectacular, but it requires a little bit more thought than everything. I hate how the carpets jump like that. Yeah, I don't know, aside from the normal spacing issues and the fact that nothing here is really outstanding aside from that one wall jumping puzzle, I'm having a hard time saying this level is anywhere near as bad as the others. In fact, I might actually call this level alright. And I guess it was also short and sweet, because this is a Magic Carpet ride and I'm pretty sure the level ends right after this. The level being so short may also be why I didn't remember it so good. Maybe the negative parts of the game just colored my perception of the whole thing, so I forgot that the throne room level was actually not that awful. Like, there's nothing offensively terrible about it, it's quite adequate, aside from, again, the resource allocation issues. And I'm not a big fan of the carpet ride, but we've already discussed that, I think. I'm not sure why there appears to be some lapse in my memory for this level in particular, and I didn't remember this level being okay. Or remember it very much at all. I do recall the next level being rather bland, in spite of it looking interesting. Looking interesting in the sense that it appeals to my aesthetic taste, not looking interesting in the sense that they actually fixed the resource allocation issues, because they did not. I don't know, you know, maybe if all the levels were, how long was this level before the Magic Carpet section? Like 5 minutes? If all the levels were 5 minutes long, devoid of filler, and had genuine platforming challenges in each room, then we wouldn't be here right now, and I would just tell you the game is okay, instead of going through all of this. This makes me even more curious, though, what the game designers and developers were doing or thinking during this, because this level wasn't that bad. So I wonder why all the other previous levels had to be so bad. Bad enough to color my perception for the entire game in a negative light. Also, here's a mini-boss thing I forgot about. I'm pretty sure I forgot about it because you just kind of hit it a couple times and it falls over. Yeah, like that.
We found a mirror piece! We found a mirror piece! Do you ghouls get the feeling we're being watched?
This has gone far enough! Do you really think you can stop me?
Don't worry. After we find the 12th mirror piece, we'll be right back to Monster High to get the last one from you.
Ha! Good luck finding the 12th mirror piece. I imagine it'll be hard for you to look while you're falling to your doom!
I'm going to feel that in the morning. This looks safe. Look! That one has no shadow!
These cutscenes are just a gift that keep on giving, aren't they? That one was even worse paced than most. They barely reacted to being dropped into this giant pit with living gargoyles, and the boss fight started without any fanfare whatsoever. Anyway, as the cutscene pointed out, the gimmick of this fight is that the one you have to hit does not have a shadow for whatever reason. It's a slightly more interesting gimmick than the other boss, so I will give it that. It doesn't make any sense, but I mean, at least the scenery's kind of surreal, and it's maybe intentional this time. The boss's attacks are to summon a ghost that chases after you and then to try and shove you off the platform with wind. Neither of these are particularly effective, and both are easy to avoid. You can bait the homing ghost, and you can simply walk toward the gargoyle when he tries to push you off the platform. I mean, this isn't a horrendously awful boss by any means, especially compared to the first one. This one actually looks okay. The animation for the flight of the creature is not that bad. If there were a way to improve this boss battle, it would be things such as summoning more than one ghost at a time, making his wind gust attack more formidable, maybe requiring you to jump over a few wind shockwaves. But you know, it's not horrendous or bad or awful or anything, it's just kind of bland. It's kind of a cool idea, you know, finding the difference in the clone statues and figuring out which one is real. And the boss's attack pattern isn't actually bad, it could just use a bit more to it to make it actually a formidable boss instead of just a chore. I also like the environment you fight in, although I think the copy-pasted pillars are a bit too frequent. Maybe a few less of those. But no, yeah, strange abyss with giant spiral staircases fashioned after snakes where you fight a flying gargoyle monster. Kinda cool. I'm sorry to say the game does not build on the improvements you've seen in this previous level and during this boss battle, though. The next level personally appeals to me aesthetically, and I guess you could say the final boss tried something. Probably a cute nod to other final bosses was intended. But the level preceding this boss was the highlight of the game design, which is strange because I barely remember it.
That wasn't so hard. Shiny!
We found mirror!